Thank you, Rich, for that more than generous introduction. This is a large crowd. You absolutely do represent one of the 400 or more meals that we serve at every breakfast, and again at every lunch, and again at every dinner. I feel much more comfortable in that space, but I'm just so inspired to have you all here today. I want to express my deep gratitude to Congresswoman Suzanne Bonamici, Congresswoman Maxine Dexter for being here today. Your presence is a powerful reminder of your commitment to the work that we do and, more importantly, to the people we serve. We are thankful for the recognition that you bring to our efforts. I also want to welcome, you can applaud that, okay. I'll try not to step on my own applause line, so just feel free, shout out. They were gonna heckle me from the corner, so that's fine, thank you. I also wanna give a warm welcome to First Lady Amy Kotek Wilson. First Lady, I'm just so very pleased that you're here today with us. And together with Governor Kotek, your leadership to address our state's behavioral health crisis is both meaningful and appreciated, and I am particularly honored to participate in your and the Governor's Behavioral Health Roundtable, so thank you. Welcome also to our new state representative in Old Town, Shannon Isidore. Thank you for being here. And to Council Member Mitch Green, thank you as well. We're so pleased that you're here. And I definitely want to thank our new mayor, Keith Wilson. Mayor Wilson, your call to open overnight emergency shelters to save lives deeply resonates with us. We are committed to doing just that at a shelter that we plan to open, which is named in memory of our meal guest, Bethany Johnson, whose life we tragically lost last year. I practiced this a number of times so I could get through this, but thank you. Because Bethany's story is heartbreaking. She was killed in a hit and run, struck by a driver who, with no regard for her life, just kept driving. Not a day goes by, and I'm being very honest about this, not a day goes by that I don't think about Bethany, her senseless death, the challenges she faced, and the life she once had. Bethany was a college graduate. She had a degree in music. She could play 5 instruments. And then a tragic car accident left her with traumatic brain injury, and the life Bethany envisioned for herself was never to be. Now, Bethany was unique. All of the people we serve are unique, but sadly, her tragic outcome is not. Many people we have served, just too many people we have served, have died senselessly and tragically. And amidst all this loss, I find myself asking myself, what more should I do? What more could I do? And I believe that is the question that we have to ask ourselves as a community. What more can we do to alleviate suffering, promote dignity and hope, and save lives? Now, I have to confess, this is not the speech I had prepared for today. In fact, I had a different speech all ready to go. A speech about happiness. Now, we don't talk about joy very often in the work that we do with our houseless community. So I plan to talk about how Blanchet House fosters and promotes joy and happiness among our meal guests and our residents. But then 3 weeks ago, I attended the Leadership Now conference hosted by the Murdoch Charitable Trust. And there, in the company of more than 300 nonprofit leaders from across 5 or 6 states, I heard this message, that as leaders, we need to talk less about how we got here and talk more about how we're going to get there. And we also have to acknowledge that what got us here is probably not what it's going to take to get us there. And in that moment, I realized I had written the wrong speech for today. This speech can't be about what's here. It needs to be about how we will get there. And to answer that question, we must first define what there looks like. What does there look like? There is the place where we respond in full to the pain and suffering around us, when we act in the fullness of our belief that every person has inherent dignity and worth. And because we believe that every person has inherent dignity and worth, we also believe that no one is beyond help. No one, no matter their condition or character, their health or helplessness, their shame or despair, is beyond reaching out to in the fullest expression of our calling. In the fullest expression of our calling, what in Catholicism we would call our charism. And if we are called then to act in the fullest expression of our charism, then we must ask, what more can we do? Now, what more can we do is not a lament. It is not a passive question. It is an imperative. It demands action, and the answer is clear: we must do more. Unfortunately, our ability to do more faces extraordinary challenges right now. Right now, the people we serve and our very act of serving are met with increasing disdain. More and more, we face scorn for showing compassion. One of our residents recently encountered a landlord who refused to accept help from Blanchet House for the first month of rent. The landlord sent this text to the resident, and I quote, "Go back to Blanchet House. The Blanchet House money is for recovering drug addicts, alcoholics, people that are homeless. I don't accept those types of people." End quote. Oh, trust me, it got much worse from there. This kind of resistance is something we face often, especially when we are trying to transition people into employment or housing. So we know that we have to do more, we must do more, but in this environment we are asked to do more with less. You've also seen the news and heard from our leadership that we are in for significant budget cuts across our community. In fact, unfortunately, we recently learned from the county that the funding we've gratefully received this year for our meal services is not included in next year's proposed budget. So in this way also, we are asked to do more with less. And unfortunately, we are no longer allowed to offer our supportive services and pop-up clinics and outreach in the parking lot adjacent to our cafe. This space has been a lifeline. It's where we've held our clothing boutiques, where our meal guests can browse for clothes with dignity. It's where trusted partners have provided medical and mental health care, foot care clinics, and medical testing that saves lives. It's been a place for free haircuts, bike repair, musical performances, and of course, free pet care from our amazing volunteer, Dr. Mack, and the Oregon Humane Society. But since we can no longer use this space, we are asked to do more with less. But as Hamlet would say, there's the rub, because we cannot do more with less. We can only do less with less, but we cannot do less. We must do more. We are called to do more. At the Leadership Now conference, the CEO of the Murdoch Trust, Romanita Hairston, acknowledged that at this moment we are called to do more in an environment that is riddled with uncertainty, threat, and fear. And in doing so, Romanita called to mind FDR's famous quote, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." But Romanita expanded on this, telling us that FDR then defined fear in that speech. He defined fear as that which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance. Paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance. And advance we must. In the words of a colleague, Executive Director Andrea Bell here in Oregon, this is the time to recognize the scale of our challenges and bring an even greater scale of ambition to confronting them. This is not a time to be tentative. This is a time to be bold. At the conference, we were reminded that we are often tentative because we fear how acting will affect us. But we are bold when we want our actions to affect others. Advancing in such a time takes commitment, fortitude, perseverance, and sacrifice. And because it requires sacrifice, advancing requires courage. But the good news is, at Blanchet House, we are infused with courage because our commitment to do more, to advance rather than retreat, comes from our charism, from our most essential belief, the same charism and belief that inspired our founders, including Jim O'Hanlon Sr., sitting in the front row, 73 years ago, to do something amazing. But it's easier to be bold and courageous, to bear the scorn and derision, the obstacles and barrier, when you know that your core identity and calling are good and righteous. It's easier to bear the cost of sacrifice when you bear that cost for others. To the elected leaders here today, I applaud your courage. Public service demands sacrifice, and it takes courage to serve the way you do. Know that I too have courage. I have courage because I am not alone in this work. I stand with an incredible staff whose dedication and conviction inspire me every day. Blanchet staff are proximate. They are proximate to the pain and suffering in our community. They are proximate to the desperation and degradation, the hostility and fear, the terror and the shame. And because they are proximate, the call for help, the call for our charism is literal and compelling to them. I'd like to ask the Blanchet House staff who are here with us today to stand and be recognized for their courage and service. I need my staff members in the room to stand up again, just for one more minute, I promise. Up, up, up. Because I have to acknowledge that we also have courage because we stand with many other nonprofits in our community who also serve with courage and conviction. And many of those partners are here today. Would you please stand as well so that you can be recognized with us for your heroism and dedication? Could our nonprofit partner friends please stand and be recognized? I would be remiss not to acknowledge in this moment that there is a lot of fear and uncertainty in our nonprofit community. And so I want to say here to our nonprofit partners that Blanchet House is here to lift you up just as you lift us up. We are eager to join with you to make sure that we can put our resources and our courage and our compassion together to make sure that we not only survive, but that the people who depend on us do not go without. Finally, I have come to the key point in my speech, and I know I've gone long, but I am mindful of what the all-time great college basketball coach John Wooden said, "Be quick, but don't hurry." I have not hurried here today because I have a purpose here, and I know that my purpose is righteous and good because our calling is righteous and good. And my purpose here today is to tell you, we need your help. We need you to sacrifice with us. And we ask for this sacrifice not because we're greedy, not because we're ungrateful for all that you do for us. We ask for your sacrifice because we are called to do more, and we cannot do more with less. We can only do less with less, but we cannot do less. We must do more. We must do more. Can you please say it with me one time? We must do more. Let's do it one more time. I want them to hear you in Old Town and at Blanchet Farm in Carlton. We must do more. Thank you. And we cannot do more without your help. We cannot do more without your sacrifice. At the leadership conference, we were told that now is a time for truth-telling. We are called to see in full the pain and suffering crying out for our charism, and having seen, we are then called to act in full. To do, as Mayor Wilson has urged, the most good we could do right here, right now. We could do less, of course. We can always choose to do less. But if we choose that path, we must frankly acknowledge that doing less does not mean that people will simply go without. Doing less means that people will not survive. The situation is that critical, the moment we are in is that dire, and we cannot wait to act until all conditions are perfect. We cannot wait to act until all conditions are perfect. But that isn't when our charism is called for, is it? When conditions are perfect, when the time feels right and not very risky. That is why doing more in a time like this takes courage and sacrifice. That's why we need to be bold and not tentative. Remember, we are only tentative when we fear how acting will affect us, but we are bold when we want to act so that we can affect others. True hospitality is not about giving from what you have in excess, but from what is difficult or dear or even scary to part with. Therefore, we at Blanchet House, as a true house of hospitality, we must marshal our assets and resources, our courage and conviction, our community's energy and love, your energy and love. We must marshal it all in the full expression of our charism. In the full expression of our charism. Because what is Blanchet House here for, if not for this? What are we here for, if not for this? You have my gratitude and admiration. Thank you for joining us here today. Thank you for joining us in sacrificing so that we can save lives in our community.